fantastical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Yes, that is right. Welcome everybody on in to the Emma Stone and Noah Kahan SNL Roundtable here on this Monday night, season 49, episode 6. My name is Jon from the SNN. Very excited to be back with you on this Monday to talk about another member of the Five Timers Club coming on in. And it was a very interesting episode. We had a lot of fun on Saturday on the Hot Take Show talking through that Five Timers moment that we had in the monologue, some of the sketches. Was it the best Emma Stone episode of all time? Maybe not, but I think it was a lot of fun. So we'll talk through it all. And I am excited with the panel we have here tonight and everybody joining us in the live chat. So first up, let me bring in my friend Sammy Kay to the show. Sammy, how are you?
Jon, I'm doing well. I mean, I took the day off today, just randomly. Had to burn up some PTO days for the end of the year, so I was able to really soak in this episode, give it a rewatch, let it simmer, and I feel like I'm ready to dive into this Emma Stone episode, one of my favorite actresses, and I love to see her on SNL, so I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, Sammy, I thought you were going to say you took the day off to prepare for the Roundtable, which was incredible devotion to the show.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, it was kind of a twofer, I'd say.
Well, I appreciate it, and so do the listeners. So I hope you're bringing your A game tonight. And joining us as well on the show is the wonderful Gabby Forbes-Bennett. Gabby, how are you?
I'm great. I unfortunately had to work today, but I was still able to watch the episode. I know. And yeah, super excited to talk about Emma Stone today.
Yeah, excited to hear your thoughts tonight. And joining us as well is the one, the only Jack Roskopp. Jack, how are you?
Hi, I am great, doing well. Happy to be here. It's Monday. Wasn't a bad Monday, which is always great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited to have you here, Jack. I know that you are an Emma Stone fan, correct? If I remember correctly.
Love her to death. Anytime she hosts, I get really, really excited. So I was super pumped about this one and super pumped to be here talking about it.
Yeah, I think that was the feeling in general for years now on the podcast. One of our biggest questions we ask the listeners is, which four-timer would you like to see host for the fifth time? And Emma Stone wins that poll like crazy. Like, people just love Emma Stone. They could not wait for her to come back. And for some of you, I know it's like, this is what we got. But you know what? I was happy to have her there. She's such a pro. She's such an amazing host. And I do think back to the first time I saw Emma Stone on SNL, and she was a pretty big name actress at the time, but one that was more at the start of her career. And nobody knew exactly what we would get, because sometimes those big names, you never really know if they're going to be able to pull it off. And she was just so perfect for the show. And it really felt like, to me, through the 4 times we've seen her, and I believe she's cameoed at least 3 other times, she could have been a cast member in another life. Like, that's how good she is for SNL. And I think it's so great to have her there, to have her be a woman joining the Five Timers Club. So I do want to talk about the decision to book Emma Stone, to finally have her back in season 49 for the first time as a host in 5 years on the show, or 5 seasons on the show. And, Emma Stone in general, her career at SNL. So Sammy, let's get all of your thoughts on Emma Stone.
Well, I was like incredibly excited. Jack, you may be the biggest Emma Stone fan on this panel, but I might be able to compete there, because I've always said, Superbad, one of my favorite movies. It's the first time I ever saw, her, in anything. And ever since then, she's just been like one of my favorite actresses. And to see her go on SNL so many times, someone I'm always excited to see, even if the episode is, a little shaky, never disappointed by what she's offering to the show. And, you can tell that she really loves SNL. I mean, she talked about in her monologue how, she met her husband there, and, not Lauren, even though they panned over to Lauren, but, her real life husband. It was awesome to see Lauren. I think, was that probably the first time we saw him this season? So, that was cool. But yeah, I mean, in SNL 40, she comes in and does, Rosanna Dana. So she is somebody who clearly has a love for SNL, and it's always nice to see somebody like that, make strides in their career to the point where they're able to come back so many times and be inducted into the Five Timers Club. So I was very excited with this booking.
Yeah, we did make a post in case you missed it at the SNL Network, and it's up on our Instagram page and our Twitter feed as well, where we did post the 24 members of the Five Timers Club. And I do think if you were start to look through the Five Timers Club, except for maybe Steve and Alec and John Goodman, who really just hosted like in the tier of their own so many times, most of these hosts, you could say, okay, I remember them for being a part of this era of Saturday Night Live. But I think the great thing about Emma's Five Times is they are really spread out. Her first time hosting back in 2010, it's a completely different cast. Keenan's the constant, but you really get to see her in sketches with different cast members. And to me, that is more points from how I evaluate hosts. Like, can you do things in different eras in the show and work with different cast members? That to me is an impressive feat for a host. So I was excited to see her back and get to play with some of the new players we got in this episode. And I think we'll talk about that through some of the sketches tonight. But Gabby, would love to know from you, what is your experience with Emma Stone, both off the show and on the show as an SNL host?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of some of her movies, like Superbad, Easy A, of course, classic. And when I heard that she was hosting, I knew that we were in for like a pretty solid time. Like you said, she's been a host, like just really spread out over the years. So it's nice to see how she kind of works with different cast setups. And that's also why I think she really seems to fit in my opinion. When she said during her monologue that SNL was her favorite show growing up, I kind of believe it just based off of how much she throws herself into the ridiculous things that they have her doing in the show.
Yeah, when Sammy brought up her doing Rosanna at the 40th, I mean, that was obviously a very big moment to, not have Gilda there and then have Emma Stone play that iconic character. That was, it showed how much Emma loves the show. But I do remember during Emma's second time hosting, even during the 2011, that would be season 37, there was a bumper where we had Emma Stone as Rosanna. And for me watching that was really cool. I was like, oh, wow, she is a really big fan. She does love the show, like you said, Gabby. And I was excited to have her back, because I think it meant, despite maybe, what we saw last year with Woody, like some of the Five Timers the last few years, like, did they really have a reverence for the show in the way that Emma Stone does? I don't think so. I think Emma really appreciates this moment that she had getting into the Five Timers Club. So Jack, what were your thoughts seeing Emma Stone back at the show?
Yeah, I mean, no offense to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but I think Emma Stone, loves Saturday Night Live probably way more than someone like The Rock, who is a 5-time host, which I was like completely shocked by. I totally forgot that happened. But anyway, I love Emma Stone so much. Like Gabby said, Easy A is like one of my all-time favorite movies. She's just the best, and she can do so much. And I think we also forget that she like has an Oscar, which is kind of crazy. Like, like she's an Oscar winner. But I was thinking back today of like some of my favorite Saturday Night Live sketches, and Emma Stone is in a lot of those. Like, I think like The Actress is like my Roman Empire. I think about it all the time. I think it's one of the best pre-tapes ever. Wells for Kids. What's the other one? The Christmas Candle song. I mean, so many good sketches. Emma Stone was in. I Broke My Arm. Like that pre-tape was so funny from like 10 years ago. Yeah, the Adele crying, eating ice cream. Like there's so many memes. I feel like from Emma Stone hosting Saturday Night Live. So I just knew we were in for a treat, and I was excited. And yeah.
Yeah, I will say one of the feelings that I get with somebody like Emma Stone when they host is that back in the original days of the show, I guess the concept of Saturday Night Live was you were going to have these cast members who were very raw in their careers. They were called the not ready for primetime players. They weren't the ones that were experienced and did movies and TV shows and came in. And I think in more recent decades of the show, we'll see hosts that come in who are sort of out of their element in ways, and the cast is so much more polished that it's like the cast is the true stars of the show. And that might be to your viewing pleasure. That's what you might like in Saturday Night Live. But I do find it very refreshing to have an episode where a host comes in, and at least for a couple sketches in this episode, you could see that this host, and they were not a former cast member, they're like teaching these kids some things. And I think you see that in a couple of these sketches. So for me, that is what is very exciting about somebody like Emma Stone coming in to host the show, and why it is very well deserved that she got her 5 Timers Club jacket. which is what I want to talk about next. I want to talk about that monologue that we got from Emma Stone and how they treated the Five Timers moment for her, because it was just a couple of years ago that we had John Mulaney get into the Five Timers Club. We had that big set, that big moment for the first time since, they did a Jonah Hill one, since Timberlake and Tom Hanks. But were any of you disappointed, or were you satisfied with the Five Timers moment we got from her? We get Tina Fey, who comes in, who was obviously, as big as it gets when it comes to women in SNL history, and Candice Bergen, who is an absolute legend, the first woman to ever host SNL, the first person to ever come back and host SNL for the second time. So she's so representative of somebody who is a returning host. Sammy, were you happy to see Tina and Candy there? Did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, I feel like expectations is, it's tricky with these because we're as SNL fans, as the diehard fans, we're expecting the world. We're expecting, everybody to be there. So, the fact that it wasn't, a full, kind of, John Mulaney was the last time that did kind of a full Five-Timer sketch. It's a little disappointing, but, you had the people that you needed to have there, I think, with Candice Bergen, especially, and Tina Fey, two just incredibly important people to the history of the show. And I like the rapport they had. I mean, I feel like in some ways, they having it in the monologue kind of takes some of that kind of dialogue and weight away from Emma Stone during this moment and giving it to Tina Fey and Candice Bergen. So, maybe from this particular rendition, I would have liked to see more from Emma Stone, but I really enjoyed the way she was able to incorporate, her emotion at the end. It really felt like she was about to get emotional. And then she went straight into the bit with the Woody Harrelson and the joint. Like that was like such an effective sort of transition from like the kind of emotional sort of pathos you get from a moment like this in SNL, like back to the comedy of it all. So I thought that was like a great moment for her. And yeah, everything, that Candice Bergen, every time she can come and be on SNL. Obviously, it's been so long since she hosted, but the fact that she's still able, to come and make these appearances is great, and Tina Fey is great as well. So, as much as I'd love to see a full blown sketch, maybe bring in some of the other women like Drew Barrymore and Scarlett Johansson, like that, getting that kind of image of all of them together would be great. But I think this was a solid way to go about this one.
Yeah. So, I was thinking also about Paul Rudd's episode, which was, sort of put on kibosh because of Omicron at the time, but they were going to do a big Five Timers Club for him. And then they ended up obviously canceling that because people couldn't make it into the studio, and they ended up doing it for Mulaney. And I have to wonder if this is the type of thing that when the Five Timers host is coming around, is it Lauren and the producers who are like, you know what, this isn't the right time? Or is it just simply based on availability? Like, how many people can we get here on a given night? Like, had this been the Christmas show, had Emma Stone hosted when Kate is gonna host in a couple of weeks, and maybe people are not doing as many projects, would we have gotten that Five Timers monologue instead? Those are the things I tend to think about here. But Gabby, how do you feel like they handled all of this?
Yeah, so I really love that Tina and Candice were there. I am a diehard Tina Fey fan, and I think that, like, it doesn't need to be a big to do every time, but it did seem a little bit like, I don't know, like they weren't committing to one or the other, and they're having Emma just kind of be there by herself and, just kind of like basking in the moment herself, versus having some of the other Five Timers kind of come in and do their thing. And so I feel like I wish that, it was a little bit longer. Maybe they could have leaned in a little bit more into the whole women thing. Like Candace had that joke about how, the women's side of the club is a corner to cry in, or was a corner to cry in. I feel like, it would have been a great opportunity to have more women, kind of on the stage for that kind of reference, and that if they're going to lean into that kind of joke. But I do feel like it was kind of, I don't know, short. I don't want to say that Emma was kind of robbed in a way, but it just felt like it wasn't entirely her moment. Like Tina Fey came in with a Mean Girls joke / promo, and it felt like it kind of overshadowed Emma just a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would think that if they had been able to get Drew Barrymore, Scarlett Johansson, and Melissa McCarthy there, then they would have done something even bigger at that point, because then you do have the 6 women in the Five Timers Club who are in the building. So it would feel weird if just all 6 were standing there. Maybe you do go to the actual Five Timers Club set at that point. We were talking on Saturday about Scarlett Johansson, how easy it was to potentially get her in the building that night, given that she's married to Colin Jost. But I did completely forget that Scarlett Johansson was the one who gave Woody Harrelson his jacket last season at the end of the night. So it isn't like she hasn't appeared when they needed her to come in last minute to give out a jacket. Jack, what did you think of Emma's Five Timers moment?
I actually really liked it. I thought it was like kind of sweet. I loved that like Tina Fey and Candace were both there. I was just thinking it reminded me of the Jonah Hill one, and I was like, oh, where's Drew Barrymore? It would have been really great if Drew would have been there, because I feel like that Five Timers sketch was so. I rewatched it earlier today, and I was like, God, that was so funny. But I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was really sweet, and I think you could really tell that Emma Stone was like truly humbled, and like her dreams came true. I don't know, I was cool with it. I thought it was really nice and fun.
Yeah, I thought it was fun too. I didn't mind the Woody Harrelson joke that they made.
Oh, I
thought
loved
was
that
like,
too. Yeah.
I
yeah,
like
here,
that as
let me play
well.
that. Let me play that for the listeners in case they forgot. Here we
Is
go.
this a joint?
Oh, that must be Woody Harrelson's jacket.
Well, there's also a vaccine card in here.
Oh, then it's definitely not Woody.
Like, I don't mind that as much, because that was like a really big thing that happened that nobody realized like while it happened live, but everyone was like, wait, what did he say? So
Yeah, totally.
I think if they're gonna like sort of put the button on the Woody moment that happened during his Five Timers monologue, I thought that was kind of cute. It would have been weirder if they brought it up like the next time there was a Five Timer, but considering Emma's the next Five Timer directly after Woody, I didn't mind it as much. All right. Well, excited to be able to celebrate Emma Stone tonight. And let's get started on her episode by going back to the cold open that we saw this week. And everybody thought we might see a farewell to George Santos. And boy, did we ever, as we got Sarah Sherman opening up the Situation Room as Wolf Blitzer. And she introduces Bowen Yang, who will play George Santos for the 6th time, maybe the final time, probably not, given SNL's history. But here we go with George Santos, who does this mock press conference where he hired the reporters to come in, played by Heidi, JJ, Mikey, Ego, Andrew, and Devin from the Huffington Post, or HuffPo. And it ultimately turns into George Santos as Elton John doing a little Candle in the Wind or a Scandal in the Wind, which was very fun to me, which I'll play for you.
It seems to me I lived my life like a scandal in the wind.
Which is very smart, very smart. And I thought this was really fun from Bowen Yang. I wasn't as thrilled about Bowen as Santos the last time we saw him, which was literally the last episode of SNL. But now I think they had something here. So, Sammy, what do you think of the cold open this week?
Yeah, I'd say overall, I liked it okay. I found it to be a lot more memorable to me than it was necessarily like, the best of these kind of Santos jokes. Like there's not a ton of the kind of lies in this one that, thinking about it now, that like really stood out to me. I think the line about being like the Princess of Genova, which I think is a Princess Diaries reference, right? That I thought that was very funny and is like totally like a Bowen Yang like, thing. I found that like once we kind of get away from the press conference, and maybe because we like had just recently done a press conference sort of cold open, I really started to enjoy this one. It felt like more of a moment. It felt like more of a, obviously a great performance from Bowen, and a very, like, if you're kind of making his, best of Bowen Yang, like this is something that is going to have to be on there. Maybe, the cold open for his best of. So from those standpoints, I really enjoyed it, but it could just be, I'm just like, and maybe just tired of the Santos of it all. And it's hard to kind of, look at it, objectively, because I'm just over this as kind of like a news story, I guess, but they definitely like had to do it. And I felt like, there are certainly moments in here, like for me, like a very small moment that I really took note of was when he's, playing at the piano and singing. They cut back to the press conference. Like that was really funny to me as a visual joke, because it felt like to me we went into a dream sequence, and no, he's actually doing this in front of this press conference was super funny to me. So yeah, overall, like from a performance standpoint, this definitely won me over at the end. But I felt like, you know, some of the Santos-isms, you know, weren't my favorites. You know, maybe we've kind of, you know, done this enough, and, you know, hopefully this is the last time, but you never know with SNL.
Yeah, I also think it's kind of not fair to Bowen, who, you know, was cast in this role and, you know, plays Santos pretty well. But there's been so many times in SNL history where we've had people do impressions more than 6 times on the show, and we're like, yes, yes, like give us more. And I just sort of feel bad for Bowen, because it's like we're all like, in this day and age, everyone's so ready to move on to the next thing so quickly, when I still think there was something here. And I wouldn't have liked this if this wasn't taking, you know, I know this was completely fictional scene, but this was what happened to Santos this week, which was that he was removed from Congress. So you had to do it this week, Gabby. What did you think of it?
I actually really liked it. It seemed kind of almost like, you know, a farewell, very on the nose for what happened to him this week. Just because, I mean, the stuff that has gone on with him truly is like soap opera level. And so it would be, of course, like SNL has to dramatize it, right? Even though I feel that it kind of toes the line with reality more than others, because again, it's just so extreme and dramatic. But yeah, I was a fan of it. I like Bowen's impression of George Santos, and I like the yeah, the Princess of Genovia line. When I heard that, that was a real moment for me, when I was just like, yes, there are writers in the SNL writers room who are my age and younger, and that was just a real moment for me. Um, but yeah, and of course, I love Sarah as Wolf. I thought that was great.
Jack, I felt that, and I tweeted this, this may have been my favorite thing that Bowen's done on the show. And I did really like the iceberg back in the day. I think he's had some really fun performances, but I just felt like he was just putting his full self into this. I really felt like he cared to put on a good performance here that not only celebrated his run as this character, but also was like true to the comedy of Saturday Night Live, and expanding on the character to the point where, even though the guy himself is such a parody, that they made it even more ridiculous. And I think this worked for me on all levels. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, this was probably my favorite cold open, I think, of the season so far. It's funny, I saw a tweet on like Thursday or Friday. Well, it had to have been Friday, I guess. That was like, if Saturday Night Live doesn't have Bowen at a piano singing Hallelujah in the style of like Hillary Clinton after the election, then like they're doing it all wrong. And then that kind of happened. So I'm like, did a writer see that tweet or something? I don't know. But I don't know. I loved it. I thought Bowen was just like doing the thing. The line about like the Botox, and then I've been saying it all day. It's filler, slut. Like, it was just so stupid, so funny. It just, I don't know. I loved it. My mom texted me like she was dying from it, which I don't. My mom watches Saturday Night Live, but will never really like text me anything that like, did you watch this yet? Because she doesn't, you know, think it's funny anymore. But she thought this was funny, so I was like, yeah, this was great. But yeah, I just thought Bowen. He probably knew this was like the last time that he was ever going to play George Santos. Hopefully he is gone from our lives forever. That would be great. But I just think that he put it all into there, and it was just such a Bowen performance. I loved it.
Yeah, I'll also shout out that as much as we enjoy the five timers moments and the reverence for the show, I love it when they do a different kind of live from New York, which we got with him singing live from New York into his song. And I thought it was so well done. So I'll play that.
And you can blow me all you want, but I'll never lose my light. And live from New York, it's Saturday night.
Like, if they ever do a DVD Best of Bo and Yang, like, I feel like you have no choice. You got to start that off as the
I got chills. I got chills there when you played that. It is very powerful. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, there's like nothing for me, like as a big SNL fan, than just having like a really good classic live from New York. That does give me chills all the time. So I'm with you, Sammy. All right, let's get into this episode a little bit more and talk about the sketches that we want to talk about. So, Sammy, I'm going to send it right over to you. What is the sketch you want to kick us all off with?
Yeah, so I've definitely been on some shows on this network this season where I'm saying, you know, I need Michael Longfellow. I need to see what Mikey Longs is bringing to the table this season. And he brought Question Quest, which is the sketch I want to talk about. You know, it's a familiar game show sketch to open up the night. And you know, a lot of times you never know with SNL if this is going to be like a tired format or something like that. But I found this to be such a uniquely in his voice, and specifically, I saw Michael Longfellow do stand up over the summer, and he basically did an entire bit on the fact that he got a turtle when he was a kid, and now he's like stuck with this turtle, and it was totally
Tortoise?
adapted for this, or tortoise. Sorry, excuse me. Apologies. But yeah, no, like this is like a real thing, at least in this stand up, that has happened to him, where he has had this tortoise, and now it's like, you know, they live to 175 years. So, you know, being able to see that, and you know, maybe there's an extra level of love for this for me because I saw it as a stand up, and a lot of times, you know, it's hard to make that transition when you're a stand up from SNL, or coming on to SNL and trying to figure out how do I do characters, how do I do sketches, and I kind of thought this was a slam dunk as far as doing that. You know, having him play the game show host, I've seen all the Bill Hader comparisons. I feel like he's definitely doing it, you know, his own rendition of that, even though there are some similarities there. And I just thought he fit so well in this role. I thought, you know, Emma Stone played this super well. Like I thought the entire sketch was super well cast. Shout out to Punky just playing the buffoon in this lineup, and she has so many great bits here. Even like Chloe Trost as like the model, like, you know, waving her hands around, like everything, and JJ, like every element of the sketch I thought was like really well done. And there's just so many great lines from Longfellow, and the delivery. It is exactly what I've been waiting for from him this season. And as much as I do want to see him take over that update desk, and maybe we'll talk about, you know, him on update, you know, later in this podcast, you know, he is great in sketches too when he's given the opportunity to do so. So I found this to be, you know, one of my favorite sketches of the season, straight up. And I'm just really happy this made it to air.
So I do have a question for you, Sammy. Are you saying that Michael Longfellow he did own a tortoise, or he does currently own the tortoise?
I'm trying to remember the exact the end of that bit, but he got a tortoise named Speedy when he was like 6 or 9 years old, and
Okay.
at least until he joined SNL, I'm pretty confident he had it. I'm not sure if it's back in Arizona where he's from now, or if it's made it to New York. I don't remember the exact end of that joke, but he totally like did this in his set. And you know, maybe people online who have also seen him more recently than I can attest to that. But I saw other people on Twitter talking about how this is something he did in his stand up, and it was really cool to see.
Okay. Because if he does still own it, I would love to know more about that. So I'm going to mark that down as a Longfellow question to ask him one day. But yeah, I loved every minute of this sketch. I really feel like, you know, to see him, you know, take a stand-up bit and then stretch it out into a full sketch, and credit to Ben Silva and Brian Tucker for also writing this with him and pushing this out that way. But I remember last year during the Megan Thee Stallion episode, there was a cut sketch that we heard about from dress rehearsal called Water Slide, which was a Michael Longfellow stand-up bit that they tried to put into a sketch, and it didn't make it to air. And everyone was like, no, we want to see like this type of thing. And when they do it and it works, it goes to show you why they should do this more. Because to me, you know, putting the newer cast members, and he's only been on the show for 24 episodes, to have them be put in a position where they can anchor a sketch and feel comfortable because this is a bit he's performed before, to me is such a perfect way to sort of like have him take that next step in his elevation as a elevation as a cast member on Saturday Night Live. Like, to me, that is what you want to do with these people. And I think a big question, Gabby, for a lot of us was when we had hired these 4 stand-ups last year was, how are they going to work in sketches? I think this is a perfect format for somebody like Michael Longfellow. So how do you feel about Question Quest?
Yeah, I thought that he was phenomenal in it. And I guess, you know, if he does have a sort of personal connection to a tortoise, and this scenario that explains why, to me, it seemed like he really fit this host role so well. I mean, I think one of the best lines in the sketch for me was, I believe, when Emma Stone's character asks him, like, why are you doing this? And he says, because it happened to me. I guess it may have happened to him. And so I thought that was great. And Chloe Trost was kind of a standout in the sketch for me. I was just found myself trying to see how she was going to dance the next time the camera cut to her or cut in her direction. And of course, Punky, the is it a corn or flour tortoise really got me. And just, when Emma's holding up the sign that says Rudolph, and she's like, I can't read that. And it's just, in perfectly legible large letters. I thought that was great. I like it when sketches get a little silly. But yeah, I will say I was not sure what direction the sketch was going to go in, after they revealed the tortoise. I thought maybe everyone could have gotten a tortoise. But I think it went in a good direction. Especially with the juxtaposition of the tortoise prize versus just 3 cars.
Look, I don't know if it's just me, but I sort of miss having cast members on the show be like a little bit demented and evil.
Yeah.
Like I miss that evil bit, because everybody's like so nice and they all get along really well. But I like it when somebody could really stick it to somebody on the show. And I love like that Longfellow has that in, because he does seem like a really nice guy. I met him personally. He is a very nice guy, but just to see him have this in him, I think is so great. And you mentioned a back and forth. I love this back and forth.
It's your tortoise?
No, it's your tortoise.
Like the lines are so simple, and on paper it doesn't read the way it sounds, and he just is able to like do that so well to me. Jack, how did you feel about what you saw from Quest and Michael Longfellow?
I'm not a big fan of game show sketches. I feel like most of the time they kind of go nowhere for me. And when this started, I was like, oh, we're doing this again. And I was just so happy with what ended up happening. It was like this like barrel roll of just like more insanity. And I also want to say, like, everyone did so well individually in this sketch too, which I felt like kind of really helped sell it. Like, Emma Stone was great. Heidi Gardner was really funny. I loved the Old Navy joke. Like, I just thought that was so stupid and so dumb. Punky was really funny. I mean, the back and forth between she and Michael Longfellow was really, really funny. It was just, it really worked, and I'm really excited to see more from him. And him as a Weekend Update anchor I never considered it before, but now I'm kind of team Michael Longfellow for a Weekend Update. I'm like, oh,
join the movement.
Yeah,
it's fun. Join the movement.
Sammy, do you want to make your pitch for that?
Oh, right now. I mean,
go for it.
I just think my pitch is that he's just, I think, of the current cast, especially the ones with a stand-up background, I just feel like he has such a unique voice. I know a lot of people have compared him to Norm, which, that's obviously he's Norm. So, but I do think he does kind of, similar to what you said, John, like he does bring that kind of darker edge. And I feel like I want to see Update kind of have that edge. Like Shane Jost definitely, bringing that element along as well. And I just think he's a great stand-up. And if, I guess tonight we're able to see him in sketches, but I think he's succeeded most for me at the Update desk. And I would like to see that every night if possible. So that's my pitch. He can do it solo. He can do it with somebody else. I don't care, but I want him on the desk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's a no-brainer. But I just don't know that that's the direction they're going to go in if they had that option. I would love to see it for sure, because I think he's definitely great for something like that. And then Jack, I know you mentioned that the individual parts of this sketch were so great. I also want to shout out JAJ, because his announcer guy was so funny to me in terms of the voice that he was doing. This.
Congratulations, Jen! You've won a large crate of lettuce and peppers.
Like, it was so great. The voice was so perfect that he did there. Like, absolute shout out to JJ. And it was just look, I loved. Here's a couple things that I really loved about this sketch, in addition to all the stuff we're saying, and why I feel like this sketch potentially is one of the best of the season, is that you have cast members in Michael Longfellow, James Austin Johnson, and Chloe Trost, and Punky Johnson, who we have all been saying for a while that we want to see more from on the show. And here they're given all an opportunity to do something really good. So that checks a lot of boxes for people. And I think beyond the fact that you have this back and forth between the demented game show host and Emma Stone, it's also the fact that you are able, within this 3 to 4 minutes, build an entire world through the premise of the game show, because it's not just that this game show exists and he's giving out a tortoise, is that you understand that this was the first and last episode of this game show. So somehow Joe Vibin, who had owned this tortoise and was thinking of a demented way to get rid of the tortoise, created a game show that looked like a real game show and tricked all these contestants to come onto the show in order to give away his tortoise. And I think, to me, the fact that they were able to build the world of the sketch within such a short period of time and build this character so well leads you to believe that this is such a fantastic sketch. And that is why I am so supportive of you picking it tonight to talk about, Sammy.
Also, the name Joe Vibin. I mean, like, what? Like, literally, when they said that, I was like, who? Like, what? Like, it was just.
I honestly missed that until like us talking about it now. Like, I've watched the sketch 3 times, and that hasn't stuck with me. So that's like another element that is great and noteworthy. I do want to also shout out Emma Stone, obviously our host. I do feel like, looking at this episode, like, I feel like they overall could have given her a little bit more to do. And I feel like in this sketch, she plays the straight woman role like so well. And she is kind of, anchoring it with Michael Longfellow. So I thought, I wanted to shout out her performance here as well.
Yes, definitely. Also, shout out to Punky for this, which had me dying.
Same color penis.
Just so great. Such a great line. Okay,
She's
Gabby,
not
over to
wrong.
you.
She's not wrong.
She's not. She's not. Gabby, over to you for the
Same color
sketch.
penis.
Did that just? All right. Gabby, which sketch would you like to talk about?
I wanted to talk about Make Your Own Kind of Music.
Okay.
Yeah, so aside from this song having been stuck in my head since I heard it, since I heard it for the first time, specifically Chloe Trost's version, this is a sketch that I think kind of grew on me as it went on. When it started out, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, that is, a pretty funny concept of, the kind of trope that's been in, like many different kind of movies, like fight scenes. And then just seeing Emma's commitment to the character just really sold it for me. Specifically the moment or the shot where right before her character asks Mama Cass to like sing it in a haunting voice for the what will be Joan of Arc. When her arm just comes up in the scene, that I just lost it at that moment. Like it just tied it all together for me. And then upon a rewatch, I had like a greater appreciation for everything that was going on in the show. And just speaking of, again, Emma saying that she is like a super fan of the show and having been in so many iterations of the cast, I think that to me, this sketch was the one of the night that really demonstrated like her ability to fit in. Like she could have just been a regular cast member. And so it really stood out to me because of that.
Yeah, this was the sketch that I was talking about when I said that I felt like Emma was even like better than the cast members, is that she was like teaching them new things. Because like, could other cast members have done this? Maybe, but I think that Emma Stone played this role so well as the record executive that was like coming in there to basically say to Mama Cass where this music is going to be going in so many years from now. And the whole turn at the end of the sketch about this is really a horror movie about Mama, I think was so funny to me. But yeah, I didn't appreciate it as much on the first watch as I did on the second watch, because there's a lot of really subtle things that I think that they do here in the sketch between the acting and it's almost like, Jack, I found it almost like a little campy about how like basically they would be acting out the roles of the 3 other executives, like Andrew, Bowen, and Mikey, and then they would like die in their like fake little moments, and then they would almost like get up and start like act 2. But I didn't appreciate it as much. And then I watched it and I was like, oh no, this is really strong stuff from everybody involved. How did you feel about Make Your Own Kind of Music?
Yeah, I think when I first watched it, I really didn't like. I was more maybe entertained by Emma and Chloe Trost at first, and didn't really think anything of it. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is actually really, really good and really, really clever. And everyone is very super committed to the bit, which I loved. But I mean, Emma Stone just being like so ridiculous, so just like 100% in on playing this wild character. And we got to see Chloe Trost sing again, which I'm never going to complain about that. So I think it was like a good use of everyone's talents, and it was a good like ensemble piece together, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I really appreciate, this is another Streeter Seidel sketch, DiCenzo, Norman Seidel, Mikey Day, but Streeter Seidel has had such a good season. And just like that George Washington sketch that we had earlier this season, it's like such a unique concept where this doesn't take place in the modern day world. We're going to have to go back to the 60s, and then we're going to talk about what this is going to look like in present day. And I just think it's, I love these kind of sketches these don't matter this week in particular. They're so different than, let's say, something that the Troye Sivan sketch, for example, where it has to take place around the time where Troye Sivan is trending on TikTok. Like, this is a sketch that could have taken place in any era on any week in the history of Saturday Night Live. And I think it is a really well-written sketch that has a lot of fun here for the host to just do their thing. So Sammy, what did you think about it?
Yeah, this is one on the night where, I'm watching this with a couple friends, and like halfway through, I could tell like everybody in the room is kind of like, I don't know about this one, like interesting concept, but like maybe, lost us there, like kind of halfway through a little bit. But on a rewatch, this is like a total sort of grower for me. I really enjoyed it. It gave me vibes of like something you'd see at like UCB, like Upright Citizens Brigade, like just like that kind of like underground sort of sketchy kind of vibe, improv vibe. Just like the way that, they're miming all the movements and everything like that. It really felt like sort of back to basics sort of, improv stuff, which I liked. And another thing this reminded me of very weirdly, John, I wonder if you'll be on the same page as me with this, is I was getting like Candy Slice vibes from just the fact that we're in like this like old like recording studio, and I know that Emma Stone has such like a reverence for Gilda Radner, so that's a little tinge there, maybe not in the exact performance, but I kind of took that away from it. I feel like Chloe Trost is quietly having like a really great like run of appearances in her first couple of episodes. Like I don't know if you could say that she's like the star of this, but she's certainly anchoring with her voice. I mean, it's just a great surprise to see. Like we didn't, at least I didn't know going into this season, like how great of a voice she had. And I feel like they've ever since that Chalamet episode, we've gotten like a little singing in these past two. So that has been nice to see. And then the Emma Stone character here is such a great performance. This is like such this is a character I want to see on SNL, like totally, like kind of just a fully realized character. The performance and everything that she's bringing to it is something that you would think, oh, this is like a trained like person that does sketch comedy. So I thought she was great. Lots of great lines from her. Like she goes like crawls out all herky turkey when talking about like the horror movie bit. And yeah, I don't know. I overall really liked it. I can keep talking about it, but I'm going to stop because I think this is good. This is pretty good.
Yeah, I love what you said. I mean, I think that the Candy Slice reference is interesting to me. Gilda Radner character that was really popular for Gilda being like the all out like rock star. And I think that, different genres here that we're going for. But I think that the comparison is interesting because to me, if you were like selling SNL tickets, like this is the sketch that you pay money to go see because you're getting to see Emma Stone doing her Oscar-winning actress performance. Every other moment of the night, as great as Emma was, it was a lot of like toned down Emma Stone being a strong presence in sketches and having clear professional back and forth. But it wasn't this. This to me was like probably if I had to get into Emma's psyche, like she was just like hyping herself up to be able to perform this for the night. And I think it showed on screen, and I think she did such a fantastic job with it. Also, shout out to some of the writers who were in the back of this sketch: Will Steven, Ben Silva, Gary Richardson. I think that was cool to get to see some of them on screen. That's like something that we don't get as much nowadays. But yeah, I do want to credit all of them. And I like I said, I think Mikey and Bowen and Andrew really help in this sketch because they're so joyful and playing off of Emma Stone's Mitch Lester character. I forget who it was in the chat I saw a few minutes ago, mentioned Bruce Dickinson a little bit, which was the more cowbell sketch back in the day. And I do think, besides the fact that like Will Ferrell's absolutely hilarious and like Jimmy and Horatio are like trying not to laugh and stuff like that, I do think that when you have somebody come in like Emma Stone and just go as far as they can into character, and everybody else around them just buys in and is so joyful, I think that really adds to the sketch because they are such different personalities than what we get from Emma Stone. And for me, I just felt like everything was really clicking here. And this to me was definitely on the second watch, my most improved, absolutely great sketch from the night. I think we had a couple really strong ones here, and this was absolutely one of them. Gabby, any final notes you would like to say about this sketch after hearing all of our thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. I do find it interesting that it sounds like it was a grower to each of us, that it was better upon like a rewatch. And I kind of wonder why that is. And I also want to shout out Michael Longfellow as the cigarette, I assume, in Emma Stone's character's hand during the entire sketch.
That is that is very true. Yeah, apparently it is. And of course, as Longfellow would say,
Smoking makes you skinny and popular.
There you go.
there you go. Yeah, great call, Gabby. All right, Jack, over to you for the sketch that you would like to talk about.
So I wanted to talk about, I believe it was the last sketch of the night. It was the Olay by Diet Coke commercial. I'm just a sucker for Saturday Night Live commercials. I'll take them anytime, and some of my like really fun, like early memories of watching Saturday Night Live. I for some reason remember like the "Oops, I Crap My Pants" one from like the early '90s. Like that has just like stuck with me for all of my life. So I love a good commercial. And this one just made me crack up. Like I love that it is 2023 and we can still make jokes about people being addicted to Diet Coke and it like not feel old and tired. Because I feel I am personally not addicted to Diet Coke, but there are many people in my life who are addicted to Diet Coke. And I mean, everything about it was just like really funny writing. I mean, totally sold the whole like, you know, Olay Dove kind of commercial vibes. That you know, this is just the best thing that you could ever do for yourself. Heidi's line about like I drink Diet Coke on average between 6 and 45 times a day. Like I was just like that sums it up right there. But yeah, I just loved this sketch. I thought it was a good pre-tape. It didn't have Emma Stone in it though, right? Which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so my theory on that was basically they had the American Museum of Natural History gala this week that they usually have every single year, and the whole cast gets invited to, and the host who's hosting that week, I believe, goes as well. And I do believe that they lose like Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening of rehearsals, which may be a time when a host would traditionally go and film a pre-tape. So I think that probably has to do with why Emma wasn't in this one.
Yeah. But I mean, other than Emma Stone not being in it, I just thought it was a solid pre-tape. And it just, I don't know, it was my kind of comedy. It made me laugh.
I thought this was really fun. I mean, Sammy, we did a best commercial parodies bracket back. I guess that may have been last March or the March before. One of the Marches, we did a March Madness bracket of best SNL commercial parodies. And it's been a while since we've had a commercial parody on the show. I think the reason for that probably more is that people just don't watch commercials as much as they used to. So there's less commercials that more people like back in the day, like everybody saw the same commercials and we're like, oh yeah, that crazy commercial where this happened. So SNL can make fun of it. And they don't have that ability to do that in today's world. But I do think that this was an interesting one to talk about. So how do you feel about Diet Coke by Olay?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's an interesting point about the, you know, the lack of commercial parodies. To me, I really enjoyed this because it did really feel like a throwback to like the time where we'd get like a bunch of these every week. And I think, if you put this in the era where you get, multiple commercial parodies a season, maybe week after week, I don't know if this stands out as much as like, a super good one. But I think because we're kind of lacking in that in this era of the show, it really stood out to me. And I did enjoy it. It's something they kind of squeezed in there at the end of the night, which I found to be interesting placement. But I'm glad we were able to see it because it seems like they're not really showing cut for time sketches or putting those online anymore. So I'm glad we got it. But just the visual, the disgusting visual every time, that they splashed the Diet Coke in their face was great. And all of I'd say like the actual production of this was what I found to be like the most funny, as opposed to some of the joke writing. Every time they would use like the Diet Coke fizzy noise as it's like splashing on their face, like it's so disgusting and gross. I do wonder if like they could have maybe taken it like one step further if you're having Sarah Sherman in the sketch, like getting into her bag of kind of gross stuff that can go along with this. But I think they're going less towards her lane and more towards like the general commercial parody. So I see, why that is the way it is. But yeah, overall to me, kind of just like a solid throwback. Happy we got it. And yeah.
I was actually going to say something that John, I just saw in the chat, said, which was put the fake commercial right after the monologue again. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I think this would have been good placement to do right after the monologue, considering we were celebrating the women entering the 5-Timers Club, in particular Emma. It would have been cool to then have a woman-led commercial be that jumping off point from the monologue, where this time we get Chloe and Ego and Heidi and Sarah in this one. I just thought that would have been a nice touch there to potentially put earlier on in the evening, but maybe they were holding it out just to see what the timing of the show would be. Gabby, how do you feel about Diet Coke by Ole?
Yeah, I liked it. I think I liked it a little better on a rewatch. And to clarify, Jack, they're not addicted to it. I believe it was Chloe who said, I'm not addicted. I just crave it physically. Something completely different,
Noted.
Yeah. Yeah, I am not a Diet Coke connoisseur, but I'm glad that people are able to feel represented by this and feel seen. But I think that, yeah, the production was pretty good. There were a couple of lines in there that I feel were kind of like easy to overlook. Like when Heidi says, I liked my old facial cleanser, but I hated the calories. Just to kind of put it out there, I guess that she's been eating her other facial cleanser. And I think the last line was the greatest for me, about it being available for $40 behind the plastic jail in a CVS.
Yes.
Which also begs the question, is the regular Diet Coke also behind the plastic jail, or is it just the one that you're supposed to clean your face with, which is also Diet Coke? But yeah, so I thought it was pretty fun.
I love that we did have the visual also of like a hand like closing the area where you would get the Coke in the pharmacy. For me, that works. And I saw Eric in the chat said it might have been weird to have a sketch up front without Emma in it. For me, I don't think so, because like they have done this many times over the years. And one in particular I think of a lot is Taco Town, that they did, where they had no host in that sketch. It would be right after season 31, episode 2. If you go to that, right after the monologue, they did something like that. So yeah, for me, it would have been fine to do that without Emma Stone in it. But I'm glad I got this made it in the show. I think that this was a really fun way to kick off or end off our evening. All right, the sketch I want to talk about from tonight is I want to get into this PDD pre-tape that we had this week, which was the AI PDD pre-tape, where instead of what we would normally get, where Emma Stone is going to come in and talk to the guys, they lost some of the footage. So in comes Punky Johnson to basically take the place of Emma Stone, and Punky's back and forth between the guys and Punky, to me, was my favorite thing. I've said this almost every podcast. The fact that they're letting Punky be Punky on the show is such a bonus for this season, and I thought she was so much fun. I have to imagine that a lot of this was ad-libbed, because or maybe not, but if it wasn't, it so sure felt like it, because even things like this, am I that bitch from Harry Potter? Like, it's so something that Punky would say when she's trying to figure something out. And I just, that was my biggest thing coming into the season, was like, Punky needs to develop like an archetype with the audience. We need to understand who she is. And I think that they sort of like laid the groundwork for something like that last year, where we got that weekend update bit between Mikey and Punky, where she's talking about the different celebrities that she has no idea who they are, what their names are. And now it's taking it to a whole other level where we can see how goofy she is. She did this in the first game show sketch of the night. And then we get this again during the PDD pre-tape. And I'm not tired of it at all, because I think this is exactly what we needed from a really strong performer, as far as I'm concerned, that they've been misusing for years. So Sammy, how do you feel about the PDD AI sketch we got?
I absolutely agree with you about Punky. Definitely like the highlight of the sketch. I'd say overall, I liked it, but I really wanted to love this one. I felt like there was something with the flow and the rhythm of it, with the disclaimers, which I thought the disclaimers were funny, but I did feel like there was something that was kind of, obviously it's taking out of the sketch, like that's kind of the point of it, but there was maybe one or two too many of them that was, kind of, for me, interrupting, the actual structure of it all. But if I'm taking it as it is, like I thought the concept of it was super funny. Those kind of Snapchat filter sort of, putting your face on somebody's face. Like I remember when that first came out on Snapchat, like almost like 7-8 years ago, and it's like the most disturbing, creepy thing to put a picture, on top of your face. And that's like kind of like the effect they were going through here. I know they were saying it was AI, but that was more of the vibe I was getting from it. Everything with the Harry Potter stuff, how Punky thought that, she was confusing Emma Stone and Emma Watson. I found that to be super funny. And then bring Marcelo in there, as well, talking in Spanish, and like, Martin's like, you always say that, like that was really great. So I think, for me, like this could have been like an all-timer, but to me it was very good.
Yeah, I did like Punky's continual narrative throughout the episode of penis talk, where we got this.
Oh, do not touch my penis! It's just a penis! Well, it's mine!
I'm glad we got the runner throughout the night, the Punky penis runner. But yeah, I saw also Ken in the chat ask who did the narration. That would be Chris Parson. He's a professional voiceover artist. He also did Mario Kart last year, and then the 2020 part 2 thing we had. So he's been in a few different ones whenever they bring in a professional voiceover guy instead of like a JAJ to do something like this. But yeah, I see your point, Sammy. Maybe 1 or 2 less narrations. Maybe we didn't absolutely need the part with John Higgins breaking the bottle over the editor in the back room, but I thought it was fun. And for me, like this was, like I've been saying for the last few weeks, I think PDD sketches are like junk food. Like they're quick, they're easy, you enjoy them, you don't have to think too much about them. And I think this just was another great in a line of really strong PDD sketches we've had this year. Gabby, how did you feel about what we got this week from PDD?
I really liked it. Again, I love when sketches are like on the sillier, goofier side, and I feel like that's exactly what I got from this sketch. I agree with Sammy. Like, if I were to nitpick a bit, I think that maybe the flow was a little bit choppy, with all of the text on the screen and the voiceovers. But I'm okay with it. I'm a big Punky fan, and I agree with what you were saying, John, about Punky like being herself and like being able to showcase herself more on the show. I saw her do stand up, I guess now a couple months ago, and it was just like really night and day in my mind versus how she is on the show and how she is in her stand up act. And so I feel like it's shining through a bit more like in this latest season. And I thought it was hilarious when I think they were telling Emma that she looks so beautiful, and then just kind of cut over or panned over to Punky with like the terrifying filter on her face and just her teeth showing. I thought that was great. And of course, Marcelo speaking Spanish. I do wish that we got a translation of what he said, but it might have broken it up a little bit, like shattered the illusion a little bit, because the illusion was so on point. And I really appreciated the ending when it said that they've been hooking up ever since. I think that was a really nice touch, and I'm a sucker for happy endings. So
Yeah, I will say this from a structural perspective. I do believe this sketch had a weird turn with the John Higgins and the yassified part, because you do get
Yeah.
like, it's a rule of three type of thing where you get, Punky with Emma Stone, and then you get Marcello taking over for Ben Marshall. And then, what are you going to do with John Higgins? And instead, they're just going to like give him a glow up, which I think is not like it's not like escalating the sketch in the way that maybe it could have here. But like I said, I mean, I think it was quick and I think it was fun. Jack, did you enjoy what we got from PDD this week?
Yeah, and I usually do. I loved this one. It was the image of Punky with the Emma Stone filter on her face will probably haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. So I'm glad that they did that for me. But yeah, this was I thought it was good. I do agree with you on the pacing though. The pacing was a little off. I was the first time I watched it, I was crocheting actually while I was watching the episode. Just learned how to crochet and it's changed my life. Side note, but
All right.
the the transitions I like kept on having to like kind of like look up and which was my own fault. But I do agree with you that they kind of went by a little too fast for me. But on a second rewatch, it was cool, and yeah, I don't know, it was a fun sketch. And Punky, as always, was just so funny. Yeah, the who's this Harry Potter bitch? Such a good line, and I totally agree with you that that was for sure something that she probably had just said offhand, and they were like, "Yes, we have to keep that." It was great.
So I haven't seen this narrative online that people are getting tired of seeing PDD in every episode, and like, can we just like stop that right now before that we start fanning the flames and something like that? Like, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but like appreciate these guys while we have them. They're becoming huge stars. They just had their own movie. It did really well. Eventually, they may not be on the show anymore, and I promise you, we're gonna miss them when they're gone. Like, I really think we should appreciate the fact that they're turning out really good material. I don't think that there's one sketch or two maybe that maybe like are a little bit lower than the others, but like nothing has bombed for me from PDD that we've ever gotten. And I do think that it is refreshing to have them at the show, because the pacing of the sketches and the vibe of having them there is so different from the rest of the show that I feel like it's elevated my enjoyment of this era of the show, the PDD era. Sammy, do you agree? Like, is this crazy narrative we're getting online that we have to suddenly not have them in every episode if they're there and they want to do something?
I definitely see maybe the perspective. Maybe people are thinking, oh well, if we have a slot for PDD, maybe another sketch that's cut a dress isn't able to make it to the show. I definitely see that a little bit. I will say that I would rather have more PDD than less. So I'm more in your camp on this, John. I do wonder, and you would maybe have the answer to this, maybe not, but as far as like their actual output of sketches that they have written that are not PDD shorts this season, making it on the show, do you think that their output has been impacted at all by having to put out a short every week? Are we getting less PDD written sketches? Do you know that off the top of your head, or is it not having much of an effect?
Well, let's take a look live on the episode. So the sketches that we got by PDD over the last few weeks that are not the PDD shorts include the nightclub line sketch from Jason Momoa. So that's one. We have the Sarah Sherman piece on Weekend Update where she's playing Colin Jost's agent, JJ Gordon, I believe. So that's the second thing that we've gotten from them so far. They also did the Protective Mom sketch where we had Pedro Pascal come in through Bad Bunny, but that's something that they wrote last year. And then we have the Glam Gina sketch from Pete Davidson's episode. So about 4 other things in 6 episodes. I would say that's actually probably less than what we're used to getting from them. Now, they could have had a couple things that were cut that didn't necessarily get on the show. But yeah, you might have a point, Sammy, that maybe one of the negatives of having a PDD short every single week is that there's less opportunities for them to write other sketches. So yeah, give and take, I guess. All right, let's talk about anything else from this episode that we want to get into. So, Sammy, over to you. Is there anything else that we didn't cover yet that you'd like to do some rapid fire
on? Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to stick with Longfellow here. So great to have him back on Update. This was such a great way to, take what he's kind of done in the past, where you're being this like character with a crazy costume, kind of, an inanimate object, kind of, giving a voice to that. And it was so good. So many great lines here. The line about, making jokes to Colin about, oh yeah, you've definitely smoked. Like, my butt's been in your mouth like a million times. Like, that was amazing. Everything about the costume was great. And there are just so many great lines here. Again, I do want them on update, but at the same time, we would miss stuff like this. So that is tricky, but yeah, I found this to be really great and a good spin on this kind of update piece for him.
Yeah, I love the overconfidence that he shows there, where it's like bordering on cocky, and it so works for him there. Gabby, I know you mentioned the cigarette thing before. You must have enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I also like attention to detail for costuming, that the cigarette was smoking the entire time. Like, that was pretty impressive to me. But yeah, I mean, Michael Longfellow, he's great. I think that his delivery, it's like, again, you said you met him and he's a nice guy, and I'm sure he is, but he just does like, normal person who is like slightly evil really well, which is why I think that acting as a cigarette is very fitting, and why he did it so well. And so, yeah, I just love seeing him on the desk, and I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, there's also this moment that if you go back and you watch it, like right after we end off on him as the cigarette, and then we cut over to Che for his next joke, and you could hear like a noise in the background, and then everybody's laughing, but you can't see it on screen, which, by the way, like, shame on you, SNL, for not showing us whatever happened. But I assume that he was just so clunky in the costume that like the chair must have fallen over or something like that. And like, those are the moments we want to see on the show. But yeah, shout out to everybody for creating that costume and putting it on. Jack, did you like what we saw from Mikey Long's on Update?
Oh yeah, it was very fun. I love when people go on Update and play inanimate objects. It always just it tickles me. And yeah, it was a really great showing from him. And it was sort of just like a nice little piece and a nice little add-on from what he did in the opening game show sketch. But yeah, him trying to get Colin Jost to say the British version of the cigarette, that cracked me up. I loved that. And yeah, it was just like I felt like it was a really solid night for him. I also want to give a shout out just to like the costume and hair department this week. I really didn't love the pottery sketch. It really wasn't my favorite, but the hairstyles that were on Heidi Gardner and Chloe Fineman and Emma Stone were like so specific and just so good. It kind of reminded me of like Kate McKinnon, like an 80 Bryan sketch, but maybe not as fully realized. But the costuming and the hairstyles were just so good for that. I loved it.
Totally. Gabby, anything else from this episode you would like to mention?
I feel like we might have to talk about posters for a second. It
Sure.
wasn't my favorite of the night, and I actually, while watching it the first time, completely forgot that it was like a running thing. What was this, like the third time that they've done it before? But because, Emma kind of reprised her role of the sexy, ditzy poster character woman. I'm sorry, her name is slipping my mind, but
It would be Chrissy Knox.
Chrissy Knox, thank you so much. I feel like we just need to talk about it. Curious to hear what you guys think, and about SNL's the decision to make this a third time. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I was waiting for a right moment to play that. Yeah, look, I said on Saturday, I feel like they had to bring this back. Like, if you think of Emma Stone on SNL and you think of a character of hers, if you can't do Les Jeunes de Paris because Taron Killam is not coming back to SNL for many reasons, I think that you have to do something like this, especially because Mikey and Streeter write these sketches and they're still there. So for me, this makes sense. I don't mind that it was at the end of the night. I think that if this had been placed towards the beginning of the night, because it's just so the same every single time, I think that maybe I would have been more critical of it. But I still think there was some fun here, and I love the Ego and Emma back and forth that they had at the end, where Ego ends up like shoving her into the car, and then you get Marcelo in the Pete role, basically staring at her butt, and then Keenan's gonna come out of the the poster and be like, oh, okay. So I think there were some cute moments here. Jack, did anything you enjoyed from the poster sketch?
I mean, anytime Emma Stone says "Hell yeah" or whatever, I I love it, and I'm here for it. It definitely wasn't as good as the first couple times that she did it, or just that sketch. It's kind of hard to make it go anywhere else than where it goes. But I wasn't mad at that they did it, because it was just sort of a little bit of a nostalgia, I guess, right?
Yeah, Sammy, were you looking forward to seeing another one of these sketches, or you were fine with not having it?
Yeah, I thought we would maybe get one. This wasn't like the Chalamet episode where it's like, oh, we need to get another rap roundtable. Like, I didn't feel like we needed another posters, but I honestly like, I think these are like dumb and somewhat funny. Like, maybe they've run their course, but I found that the Mikey Day element in this one was great, with, just the kind of fourth wall breaking about how, we've talked about this on the show. I mean, obviously Mikey is Biden now, but he's not like the best impressionist in the world. So making fun of the accent. And I feel like Keenan was kind of trying to make him break a little bit, saying, the accent's a little weird and your hair's too long. Like, those almost felt like a little ad lib to me. And Mikey starts to break a little bit there. So, I'd be curious if that was scripted, but I'd say overall was fine. Like, throw it in at the end of the night. It's, now we've done 3. So if she ever comes back, do we have to do a 4th? Probably not.
I don't think we have to, but I do think for her 5 Timers Club episode, I think that maybe this was the time to do it. Also, we don't know if she was to come back again, if Mikey and Streeter would even be there. So in which case, would they do this sketch or not? But yeah, I believe we've seen all we can see from this sketch. Unless they were going to do something else with the Chrissy Knox character, I'm okay with leaving it as it is. Yeah. So, Jack, was there anything else from you that you want to talk about from this episode?
No, I don't think so. I wish they would have done like an actress part 2, just because that's probably my like top 5 favorite sketches of all time. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, and I was happy that Emma Stone got to join the 5 Timers Club.
Yeah, when we were on the feedback show last week with Rebecca North, she mentioned that Bowen had said on his podcast that because he had written The Actress with Julio Torres, that they probably wouldn't be bringing it back, and that sequels are really hard. Yeah, and I sort of like invite the challenge a little bit of SNL to try and find a way to top the sketch. So I think that they could have maybe done something with it. I think honestly, I would have been fine if anything, I would have given them free reign to do whatever they wanted with the actress character. If they weren't going to do the posters one, I would have been like fine with just say, hey, like at least you try something else with it. I would have enjoyed that. But I understand it was like its own piece. They felt like they wanted it to stand on its own. And perhaps if Emma Stone does come back for a 6th time, maybe that is the time to do that.
Bring back Deirdre.
All right. Yeah. So for me, I think that covers most of the things I wanted to talk about from this episode. I definitely don't want to talk about the tree sketch, but I will say Keenan gave me a very funny laugh with this line.
What are you, a human dumbass?
Yes.
that was a very funny line in a sketch that did absolutely
the
nothing.
Only time I laughed in that sketch.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that was good. All right, let's talk about the MVP from this week at the show. So Emma Stone was in 8 sketches. We also got appearances from Tina Fey and Candice Bergen. Noah Kahan had 2 performances. Leading the night in sketches were Heidi Gardner and Bowen Yang with 4 sketches apiece. And then we got 3 sketches from Mikey, Ego, Chloe, Andrew, Punky, and Sarah Sherman. JJ did that voiceover in the Olay sketch and also was in 2 sketches. Keenan, just 2 sketches on the night. For the feature players, we had 3 sketches from Marcelo and Chloe. Mikey Longs was in 2 sketches, but definitely made the most of them. We also had Devin and Molly that were both only in 1 sketch. PDD appearances from some writers as well. So, Sammy, any idea who the voters voted for this week in terms of MVP? Let's get your top 3.
Ooh, okay. I think I'm gonna go with Bowen, because that George Santos cold open, as well as the Naked and New York pre-tape. That'll probably get him some votes. Then I'm gonna go with Longfellow at number 2, even though he's only in 2 appearances. I think they're both big highlights for the night. And then I think you gotta give it to Emma Stone Obviously she's the host, but especially her performance in the Mama Cass sketch. So those would be my 3.
Gabby, let's get your top 3 for the week.
So my personal top 3, or number 1 would be Chloe, but Chloe Trost. But I think that people would have voted for Bowen as number 1, and my number 2 would be Bowen, and I think people would have voted for Chloe as number 2. And number 3, I think it's got to go to Emma.
Okay, so Trost, Bowen, and Emma. Jack, what do you think?
Sorry. I'm going to go number 3, Chloe Trost. I thought she was really good in the Mama Cass. I thought she was great in the Naked in New York City as well. Number 2, I'm going to go Emma Stone, just because it wasn't my favorite Emma Stone hosting episode. I think the last time she hosted was my fave. And number 1, I'm going to go with Bowen Yang, just because the George Santos of it all.
All right. Well, you mentioned 4 of our top 5 here for the MVP for season 49, episode 6. And big congratulations to Michael Longfellow for winning the MVP vote. 43% of the vote this week. Yeah, Mikey Long's taking the MVP voting. Just really impressed. We got so many votes in from Michael Longfellow this week, as Sammy did name the top 3, but switched up the order a little bit. So Mikey Longs wins our MVP voting, 43% of the vote. Bowen Yang, a great moment in that cold open, had another great couple great roles as well this week, 17% of the vote. Emma Stone in 3rd place, our host here, at 12% of the vote. Punky Johnson, none of you mentioned, but Punky really had a really good night as well. 9% of the vote. So impressed with Punky season so far. 6 episodes in, by far the best season for Punky so far. And then Chloe Trost in at number 5, 7% of the vote. So that's our top 5. Mikey Longs, Bowen Yang, Emma Stone, Punky Johnson, Chloe Trost, season 49, episode 6 in the books. All right. We have a good one coming up next week, because this is another host that everybody has been asking to return to the show, previously hosted 3 times back in 2016, 2018, and 2020. So let's bring back Adam Driver for his 4th time joining the 4-Timers Club to make his way back to Studio 8H. Sammy, are you excited to have Adam Driver? What are your expectations for next week's show?
That is such a ridiculous question. Of course, I'm excited for Adam Driver. I mean, if this guy does not end up in the 5-Timers Club, I'd be very surprised. Truly one of my favorite actors and just modern day SNL hosts. Like, he has done such a great job, being a host on the show. So I'm very excited. I will say that, I'd say I was overall a little bit disappointed by this Emma Stone episode because I had such high expectations. So I do feel like it's a good lesson to kind of go into this one very excited, but not lowering my expectations. But I'm anticipating what they're gonna give us. I am very curious. It seems like with recurring hosts for the most part this season, we've had them bring something back. So are we gonna get another career day sketch from Adam Driver? Like, that would be amazing. Another hard one to kind of follow up on. I love the Del Taco commercial sketches, but hard to do that without Beck, Bennett, and Kyle, but would love to see them back. So overall, I'm very excited, and can't wait to watch it next week.
Yeah, every time Adam Driver has hosted an episode of SNL, there's been at least one sketch that has, permeated the culture. Like, it's gone past the group of regular SNL fans. First one was the Undercover Boss sketch that we got in his first time hosting, where we had the, Kylo Ren sketch. And then we also had the Abraham H. Parnassus, the career day. You mentioned the Del Taco from his 3rd time hosting, but also the Domenico's Coffee one, the coffee shop. There's just been so many really great Adam Driver moments on the show. And he is somebody who I think is so unique. To me, there's nobody like him on the SNL cast, so I'm excited to see him play with these new group of players. There's a lot of people who were not on the cast when Adam Driver last hosted, so I cannot wait to see it. Gabby, are you excited for Adam Driver? What are your expectations for this week?
Yeah, definitely excited. I love seeing him in comedic roles, so I think this will be a treat. But I'm going in with no expectations, not high or low, just like neutral expectations. He will be on the show, and that's what I'm going in with that mentality. But yeah, I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see what like these younger writers are going to make him say and do, and so I'm pretty thrilled about that.
Yeah, I am always okay with under promising and over delivering, but
Yeah.
I have a good feeling about this week. I think everybody's excited for Adam Driver to come into the building. Jack, are you excited as well?
Yeah, I kind of, for some reason, like Adam Driver on SNL, I like is kind of in the back of my head. And then when it was announced that he was going to be there, I was like, oh my god, right? He did. There's like the Undercover Boss is like an iconic Saturday Night Live sketch, you know. So I don't know why he slips my mind as like a really really great Saturday Night Live host. So I am like pleasantly surprised and excited, and it's been a few years, so I think it'll be fun. And I'm interested to see what new cast members will do with him.
Yeah, I think if anything, what we learned from this week, through Michael Longfellow is we do really enjoy cast members who are, pretty nice people, but also sort of like have that evil, demented side to them,
Yeah.
menacing, and that is Adam Driver, right? Adam Driver
Yes.
is
Yes.
that person who is like, yeah, there's just like you could see the Kylo Ren, you could see the evil inside, and I think that he brings that out in some of his sketches and his ability to get angry. I think it's something that I'm very excited to see this week. All right. So that will be what we will have coming up here on Saturday night. Before we get there, we're going to do some double duty here on Wednesday. So we have By the Numbers coming up next with Mike and Victoria on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where you will get to see all the screen time from this Emma Stone and Noah Kahan week and talk through the data of the week. And then once that show is over, we'll have a second link on YouTube if you're watching us live to see the next edition of the SNL's Greatest Cast Members of All Time. So you can just stay on the YouTube channel, click that other link over and come on join us. We're now within the top 10 greatest cast members of all time. So that will be airing after By the Numbers on Wednesday about 9:15ish. We'll do that show. And so that will be out both on Wednesday night, just for this week. And then next week we'll be back to Thursdays for the last two episodes. So full night of SNN here on Wednesday nights. And then Saturday night, we will be back here for the Adam Driver and Olivia Rodrigo, who we didn't even talk about, by the way, but Olivia Rodrigo was so fantastic on the show last time. I think we might see her in sketches. I would be pretty surprised if she isn't, just because of her popularity and where she's going as an artist. I think that SNL will capitalize on getting Olivia Rodrigo in a couple sketches if they could. So looking forward to talking through all of that at our Hot Take show, 1:10 a.m. Eastern. Be there. It will be a lot of fun. I believe we will be having Andrew Dick and Amanda Mitchell with us on Saturday night. So it'll be fun to get to talk to the two of them about this episode, and we'll do it all over again next week. Sammy Kay, thank you for joining us as always. Where can listeners check out everything you got going on?
Jon, thank you for having me. I'm happy this was a Mikey Longs heavy episode that I was able to talk about my guy. You guys can find me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as at Sammy Just Okay. You guys can find me at all over the place on the Saturday Night Network, and including the Superfan Takeover shows. Definitely check those out if you have not had the chance. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Gabby, so great to talk to you about Saturday Night Live. Thanks for joining us. Anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, of course. No, I am doing nothing. But if you would like, you are under no obligation to follow me on Instagram at modestly_awesome. That's it.
That is awesome. All right. Jack, thanks for joining us as well. Anything you would like to plug to our listeners?
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jack Roskopp 22. If you live in the Metro Detroit area, you can go and click on Detroit.com. You can find I'm a writer, journalist there. I write about entertainment and pop culture. So yeah.
And you wrote an SNL piece this week, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Informational
so
piece. Yes.
You gotta go check out what Jack put out this week. So make sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify to never miss a show, and be making sure you have all of our podcasts in your feed. And you could follow us at the SNL Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. For our patrons, you can find us at patreon.com/the SNL Network. We're going to put up our poll tomorrow for you to vote which sketch you would like to talk about in our SNL sketch breakdown. That will be out in a couple days as well. And then we will let you know when we are scheduling our next feedback show, which you could sign up for to join us on the show. All right. On behalf of Sammy, Gabby, and Jack, my name is Jon Schneider from the SNN. We will see you next time, everybody.